So the Palestinian poet Marwan Makhul writes that in order for me to write poetry that isn't political, I must listen to the birds. And in order for me to hear the birds, the airplanes must be silent. I do, like Marwan, have a poetic proposition. In Kashmir, poetry, like other places, is not written in the vacuum of private lives. Like a sponge, it absorbs the poet's political reality and carries the footprints of their historical moments. It has been a rich artistic yield, as we can see. We have Aga Shahidari, we have other poets who have widely being read, but it's also immensely ethnographic. It's political in nature, and it spans across generation. Poetry here is also treated as a means to assert agency, to protest, and to document history, given the extent to which our private and political aspirations are suppressed by the brutal regime. Therefore, I advocate for poetic archives to be seen as evidence of people's lived experience, as a meeting place of what is language and what is political and what is corporeal and emotional. So my key intention here is to, using poetry, theorize the impact of war on me and my people in an attempt to make sense of violence or find closure and perhaps some peace. So the poem that I'm going to recite is about, it was written in 2019 when the Article 370 was abrogated in Kashmir. It was the legal article that was on which the remaining bits of autonomy in Kashmir resided. And it more or less talks about the interplay of war and time on lives in Kashmir. So here I go. It's called War and Time, Wait for Nobody's Mothers in Kashmir. Nowadays, my mother looks at me through the eyes of my late grandmother. Breath, hands, smile, and voice. We sit under the pre-winter sun with the radio on, and her hands seem to wrinkle in that soft, smoky light. I keep thinking it's the smoke and not the years that have gone through her. I think it's temporary, perhaps the dull, curfewed sun. Her teeth changed their color last month. You must see a doctor, I protested. But this happens with age, my dear, she said. But how would I know? The war drove away only the young. And I've not been around. In a few fleeting, precarious days at home, allow no leisure to sit through the gradual passage of time. Nowadays, my mother looks at me through the eyes of my late grandmother. Her voice is huskier than how I remember it. Her neck not as slender as I imagined it months back. When the phone line started working, we spoke and she complained of a neck ache. But now that I'm here, up close, I see that time doesn't wait for the war to leave, doesn't extend the days of youth to make space for extraordinary. It passes, rugged-edged, one day at a time, at snail's pace but leaving sticky marks behind. And then suddenly for estranged eyes. I want to hold my mother by her arms and beseech her to resist time. Don't let it pass through you. Hold on to it like you hold on to me and my brother. Stay strong, I say. I look at her garden, always bustling with life, young and colorful and busy as if the war never dared to touch it. No curfews, no checkpoints in the way of its bloom. But I've been away all these winters. How would I know? How would I know the way a bud grows from the mulch of its mother plant's leaves? How the lovely looking snow smothers one life to allow another to flourish. Nowadays, my mother looks at me through the eyes of my late grandmother. I worry about her too much. Then I look into the mirror. I see notorious gray strands sticking out of my head, worryful baggy eyes inhabiting my face. I see war and time flowing through everything. Aging sorrows, belittling empires, weakening joys. And then I worry about the world a little more and about her a little less. Thank you.